was that little guy.
Okay, can you tell me your name and relationship to Louie?
My name is Mary, and I'm Louie's older sister. Not much older, but older. Okay.
What was it like for you growing up in the Anderson family?
In the Anderson family. Well, I think the most I remember is when we lived in the projects. We were the first family, the very first large family to move in there. And it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And of course it was all new. We had 2 bathrooms and a front room and a kitchen, and it was really, really nice. And we had hot water. Something some people don't have. But it was really nice. Went to school. I went to Johnson High School. Family life was different every day. There was a lot of kids in our family. I remember my mother making oatmeal for one of them, and they'd ball and ball and ball until Captain Kangaroo came on. That wasn't really, that was Tom. It was really a lot of fun. It really was. My dad was a good provider. In other words, he worked every day, and it was pretty cold in the wintertime in Minnesota. And at one time he worked at Jewish cemetery, which wasn't far from the house. And it was so cold, and I remember some mornings he'd go, and I would think, she's going to be outside all day long digging. And it was kind of upsetting, because he was older. And when I was a younger girl, about 6, they used to take me to, my dad played at parks. Like they'd have a holiday weekend where it was July 4th. And he played the trumpet, and he was so good. And that was one thing that I knew about my dad that the other kids hadn't seen that much. I remember when we were kids, he'd take us to the Como Zoo, and he would go around a couple times to where the entrance was, and everybody would be real upset, like he wasn't going to stop. My mom was very kind of quiet and very loving, but she didn't show much affection. She didn't come over and hug you, but you knew she loved you. She was a hard worker too. I remember coming home from high school, and she'd have the couch and the chair all filled with these clothes, and she said, "I want those folded and put away, honey." And I'm going, But bandstand was on then, so I could stand to do it. Oh, I don't know about the rest of the family. Louie was only 4 when I was in high school, and I was graduating, and he used to sit on the stoop and wait for me, and I'd get off a couple blocks before home, because they had a penny candy store, and I'd stop and get him some penny candy. And he used to look up. We had to come down the slope and he'd look up to see when I was coming. But he had it timed pretty good. When I was a teenager, I worked at Porky's. I'm sure all you've heard that one. But Porky's was a drive-in in Minneapolis. It was close to the college. And it was wonderful. I had such a good time working there. I had to take the bus at night at 1 o'clock to get home. And when I came home, I smelled like hamburgers, so of course I had to take a shower and wake everyone up. But I really liked it. My father's name was Louie Anderson, and he always liked to go with the nickname Andy. At one time he had a band, and he called it Andy's Band, and it was really cool. Used to have one of those long cars, you know, where all the guys could fit in, and they'd go to the park. And I really loved my dad to play. My dad didn't play too much at home when he got older, but when I was little, I could hear him jam and all that, and it was just, you know, I liked music, so. But that was the old days.
Did you go to the park?
Well, my father would work all day, and then he would come home with something to drink. And sometimes Roger and I would take turns emptying the bottle of whatever he brought home. Well, we'd take some of it out, and then we'd put water back in it, like he wouldn't know. And then he'd say, who's been in that? And Roger and I used to run off. So right away it was like, we did it, now we're leaving. But he'd go to sleep, and he'd wake up angry. Then he'd want to fight. But my brothers came in a lot and kind of calmed him down. Mostly Kent. Would come in and say, just relax, Dad. And it was cool. And Kent bought me my first grown-up dress when I was 13. It was a green taffeta. I still remember it. And he wasn't living at home then. He was living with another couple. And the couple, the woman took me to the store and helped pick out my clothes. And I was so proud of that. I wore it every Sunday. Everybody kept saying, don't you have anything else to wear? I didn't want to tell them, no. I just said, this is my favorite.
So you didn't have?
No. The welfare would give us clothes, and when we lived on Ashland in the house, on the two-story house, they would give us army wax, you know, the ladies' wax shoes, those brown ones with those Oxfords with the ties. And they never gave us, like, real underwear. They were bloomers. And I had to be, you know, when you have your gym suit on, then bloomers go down almost to your knees. So here you are, you got blue here and the bloomers there. So it was cute, but it was fun.
What was, were you very close to your dad?
My dad and I had a thing going. He always wanted me to lose weight, and I told him I would lose weight when he quit drinking, because I knew that whatever was wrong with me, I couldn't do it. You know, I could not lose the weight. I went on diets, and he bought me a box of AIDS. They're called AYDS, and it was so great. He brought this box home to me, and he said, these are like little chocolate candies. And he said, you take one before you eat, an hour before you eat, and then you have coffee. You know, we always had coffee. So when he came home that day, I tried to not let him see me or talk to me. And he said, well, how did it go today? And I said, it went just fine. He said, how did you like that candy? And I said, fine. But the only thing is I ate the whole box of it. And he said, you're defeating this purpose here. So we always had a thing going. I always was angry at him because he was a good man, and I knew he was. He just worked so hard all the time. And it seemed like he never was happy. The happiest I've ever seen him was when he was playing his music at the park. And he was very good, really good. All the kids went to school, all those that wanted to get up. My mom had a hard time getting them up, telling them, you know, like that saying, you don't get up till your dad tells you, you know. Nobody knows that one. Break.
You start that from the beginning? And
Sure. When I went to school, there was this girl, and her last name was Rogers, and her father was a lawyer. And they lived in this big, beautiful house about maybe a mile from our house, maybe less, I don't remember. And we became great friends. Her father had a lot of books, and so I'd love to go there and just look at the books that he had. And she was very, very smart. You know, she was kind of like the teacher's pet. Is that the word I want to use? In those days, that was it. And we were real good friends, and one day we were out in the play yard, and I was coming to school late. I don't know why I was coming to school late, but I was. And she happened to be out there, and her dad left her off in the car, you know, let her out. And she said, was your father drinking last night, so that's the reason you can't wake up, or some snotty thing? And I said, you better take that back. She said, I don't have to. And I said, take it back. And she said, no. So I just swamped her one right in her mouth and knocked her 2 front teeth out. Well, I got dragged into the principal's office, and she was crying. I felt bad that I hurt her, but I didn't feel bad about what she said. I wanted to tell everybody what she said, and then when I got in there, I thought, no, I'm not telling why I hit her. So, her and her dad had a real great relationship, something that I would have really liked. She could tell her dad anything. And when she went home that day after he took her to the dentist, she talked to him and told him what she had said to me. And she apologized, and we were friends again for a while. And then when she got older, she went on to a private school. She's a really nice girl, though. Except for that day.
What was your mom?
My mother's name is Louie Anderson, and a lot of people don't know that. But I used to love it, the name. And I love my mom, too. She was very quiet. She's a lot like Louis Pertazer, you know, Johnson's own. She's very quiet. I don't think she ever raised her voice much. And she could make a meal out of almost anything. She was a great cook, great. And one of the things about my mom, she always was concerned about what we were going to have to eat, the kids. So in the morning she would say what she was going to make, and she'd ask me to sometimes bake something or cook something or help her, you know. And I loved to peel potatoes because then I could eat one. Tastes great with salt on it, you know. And one of the things that I like to do, in the beginning I liked to do anyway, was to make peanut butter cookies for my brothers. Of course, as soon as they got home, they were gone. So I had to hide some of them. Then they'd find my hiding place. My mom worked once at a very nice store in Minneapolis. Well, it was St. Paul. And it was called Dayton's, and she worked in the basement in housewares, in the pans and the dishes and stuff. She really liked it a lot. So she was pregnant at the time, and she would go to work every day, and I would supposedly be in charge. We had a lot of fun. My brothers, boys, they don't want to do anything to help their sisters. But we really had fun. And my mom was my mom had a million friends. She had just people that really liked her, and she'd always want to do something nice if she knew something was wrong or if you were hurting. And
what was Louie like?
we really enjoyed the family. We really did have a good times. One time my dad took us all to they have a carnival in Minnesota every year, and they hide a chest that's got money in it. And my dad used to get us all up, and we'd all get a shovel or a couple sticks or something that we could scoop out of the snow, so we'd go look for it. And then he'd ask us tell us what the clues were, and then we were supposed to tell him where the treasure was. And one year he was going to go some real weird place, and we said, "Nah, Dad, we don't think you should go there." And of course the treasure chest was there. We never heard the end of that, but it was fun. My dad knew how to have fun, and I remember even when I was a lot younger, when we lived on Ashland, if he saw a kid walking down the street, he'd stop and he'd give him some money for candy or whatever he wanted to go to the movies, or a hamburger. He was a very kind. Well, let's see. I think the best time I ever had was one year we had a Christmas, and they brought toys to our house. And they brought a big red wagon, and it was from the firemen. The firemen collected all these things. It was really nice. And when Kent started working, when he was older, he would buy us real nice Christmas gifts. And I always wanted a manicure set, and he bought me one of those. And then later on in life, I became a manicurist.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
So it was cool. Yes, I had graduation. I was very happy about that. I was thinking, my God, I'm the first one that made it through. And I was happy. Shanna was the second one. And they had a party for her. But I didn't get one. But it was a wonderful day. My dad came, and he was drinking. And so we helped my dad back out into the cab to go home. And Betty and I went to the Chinese restaurant, and we had Chinese food. And we, the next day, they had it in the newspaper that they had used cat's guts for the film. So we always could remember what a great dinner we had. Can't help that. That's really true. And Shanna, I didn't see much of Shanna, and when I did, she was quite a bit younger than I was. So I think we got along fine. We used to laugh so much all the time. And Rhea and I were buddies. I remember one night we were screaming, and finally they brought in a loaf of bread. My dad got some bread. So her and I went in the kitchen and made mustard sandwiches. And we couldn't eat it all because we used the whole loaf. And we were so sick of it. So my dad woke up and found out that that's what we did. So he made us eat it all. And we barfed, and it was awful. But we still think about that every time I say to her, "Do you want a mustard sandwich?" And then we start laughing. The boys and us older ones used to go out and get green apples off of people's tree. And they didn't really like me to go because I couldn't make the fence. So I was the lookout, kind of. Well, one time I tried to go over the fence, and that was the last time I went for green apples. One of the nice things we did, though, when we were kids, we could shovel sidewalks, and that's how we made a lot of our money to go to the movies or collect beer bottles and clean them out and take them down for 5 cents. It was great. And they used to have donuts then called spud nuts. They were made from potato flour, and they were really good. Never brought them back, though. Dunkin' Donuts, I think, stole the recipe. And that's my life with my family. I enjoyed it all. One reason that I talk about it like that is because I've been married for 33 years, and I was very, very unhappy. And I finally decided that I needed to have a life and to be happy. And when I got my divorce, it was like somebody opening a door and letting the light in. And what happened yesterday, you can't change. So you need to go on with your life. And I've found a lot of peace now with my life. And it's great. And I hope the rest of them also receive that. I think it's just something you just have to let it go. So that's the news.
And
when I was little, I used to, before I was 5, I went and lived with my aunt and uncle who lived in South Dakota, and they had a real nice place. And it was, they had a very rigid life. You had to get up at a certain time, you had to make your bed and all that. And then I would go home, but I would be so lonesome for my family at home. I could hardly wait to get there. So I guess maybe I needed my family when I was younger. I needed that to be needed. And whatever it was, that's what we did. And it was fun. Well, some of it. The hard work wasn't fun. And all in all, I think it was a wonderful, wonderful life, because I've learned a lot of things, mostly how to survive. So I'm grateful that my mom and dad taught us that.
Right.